Hello everyone, I'm here with Nick Danforth. Nick and I are friends who recently met in Chiang Mai through a mutual friend. But the interesting thing about Nick is he's been doing this for, compared to me, I've only been doing this thing for this lifestyle for about 4 months now. Nick's been doing it for about 4 years, correct? And we were just having a conversation the other day and I just realized, it dawned on me, my perspective is very much a newbie perspective. So I wanted to get Nick on the channel to sort of talk about it from a veteran's perspective. I know 4 years isn't as long as, your idols Cody and all that. But, 4 years is still a long time to be living this lifestyle, at least currently. So I thought we could start with how you got started and how you came to sort of live the lifestyle that you're living now.
Totally. Well, my work has always been sort of location independent. I was a musician and then I started doing work on the computer or data entry and stuff. So I never really had a normal job. So I always had the opportunity to move abroad. I never sort of, had to make the switch from my desk job to a location independent job. So I was really fortunate there. But I did live at home in the US for quite some time. And it was really when I met my wife, Steph. We started traveling together just on vacations and short trips. And, sometimes we'd go away for a week or two at a time and I would have to do some work on the road. So I'd bring my laptop to check emails and stuff. And it was a very natural progression for us. We didn't sort of have that one moment where we decided, all right, we're now going to be digital nomads. We just started traveling more. And then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then we gave up our apartment, and we sort of stumbled into it. That said, I always idolized, maybe not idolized, I always looked up to people that were doing it full time, following blogs, as long as 8 or 9 years ago about the nomad lifestyle, and so it was always something I aspired
to. But you're only quite young, so 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, I was in high school still.
Yeah.
I was always thinking, oh man, that would be cool. I wish I could do that. But I didn't really have a jumping off point where I dove in. It just sort of was a natural progression.
Okay. Were you doing the same business you're doing now at that stage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more or less, yeah. Okay. Analytics, strategic consulting. And
okay, so it was kind of we want to travel and we can do these things from anywhere. Let's go. And
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, the first time I think I worked on the road was a 2-week trip that we just took in the US to visit some friends, and I couldn't be away from work for 2 weeks. So I, did some email and some client stuff, but it wasn't a revelation moment for me where I was I can do this from anywhere. It just it sort of felt natural. I think that's why we stumbled into it. I guess the first long trip that we took was we went to Europe for a month several years ago, and we just were sort of doing a backpacker trail thing around Europe, but I was working to keep money coming in, and it was really, really difficult actually, that first trip, just figuring out the balance, because we were doing more of a traveler type trip, bouncing around very frequently, changing places, changing accommodation. But that was, I think, when it started to really click that I could do this more long term, and it evolved from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Who was sort of the people or the blogs that sort of inspired you to sort of think this way of working and traveling?
Yeah, there were very few digital nomad blogs on the internet, at least that I was aware of, when I started getting interested in this lifestyle. The people that immediately come to mind that I remember reading back then are Cody McKibben, Thrilling Heroics, he's in Chiang Mai now, Dan Andrews, Tropical MBA, Sean Ogle, Location 180, and then there were other traveler blogs that I read that are pretty ubiquitous and well followed, like Nomadic Matt and Wandering Earl, that I looked up to for travel inspiration. But as far as work from your laptop, it was sort of a very new thing back then, even as it's a new thing now.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been doing this for quite a while now.
Quite a while.
What sort of how is there stages? Can you map out a sort of how this sort of your mindset changes, or how sort of on a personal level it sort of the journey progresses for you?
Yeah.
Is there is there like a honeymoon phase at first of like, oh, we're traveling, or you said it was a bit of a struggle at first trying to manage the work and travel. How was sort of your
It's gonna be awesome.
Okay, we've just got some hoons driving around.
#Thailand.
Yeah.
I would guess that it's going to be different for everybody. It's definitely going to be different depending on where you're at, as far as like whether you've traveled before, whether you haven't traveled before, whether you have a business that is already making decent money, or whether you're starting from scratch. So I'd traveled before, but Steph hadn't. And so when we started, she was really keen to check out a lot of places, and I think that's sort of like the honeymoon phase for a lot of people is, oh my gosh, I can go anywhere. And so people do go everywhere, and they're like, oh, we're going to spend a week here, a week here, a week here. And anybody who's been on the road for longer than a few months will attest to the fact that if you're trying to work at all, that is just not sustainable. And you sort of evolve into spending longer in each place. And I think that's a pattern you see with a lot of nomads in general. People tend to spend longer and longer the more they travel.
Yeah, they seem to have bases set up, and I know you have your base, Chiang Mai,
Base,
right?
yeah.
And even we're getting to the point where we love Chiang Mai as a base. But it seems that's the way it progresses is, you know, as you said, the people who get into it generally travel more, do more traveling, like moving around in the first, I don't know however long they like. But it tends to be that I tend to see like the more experienced people, like, you know, maybe do a mixture of 6 months in their base and then 6 months traveling.
Yeah, and again, like, it really depends on the person, but I tend to believe that as humans we have this innate desire for stability in some ways. Usually it's relationally. I'm not sure if the place is even so much the issue. Like, I don't want to move, but like relationally we want some stability. Like, we crave a community, we crave being around the same people. That's what I notice, at least for me, and when I talk to other people, I've observed the same pattern. And so I think like the longer you spend on the road, the more you just want to be around like the right people and the same people. And I think that's a big reason why people decide to settle. They're like, all right, I know I can work from anywhere, but I like the people here. Or even if they don't know the people somewhere, they're like, I like the place and I want to dig into the community a little bit for a longer period of time. Because you can't do that in a week for sure. And sometimes you can't even do that in a month. Like, I spend a month in a place and I feel like I'm just starting to scratch the surface and just starting to get comfortable. If I were to move on right afterwards, it just sort of wrecks the whole thing.
Yeah. Actually, let's talk a bit about that. And right now we're at Co-Hub, which is this amazing co-working space.
I recommend.
In Koh Lanta, we both love it. But you've been to many spaces before, and you've really, like me, really interested in co-working, and you love that sort of building communities around the world. How did that sort of, is that something you discovered along your journey, and then something you realized that was important to you as you went along?
Yeah,
or?
spaces or communities?
Yeah.
Which one?
So, well,
or
I guess
both.
For me, I love the spaces that have the communities. For me, like, I'm, you know, if I went to a place without a community, I'd, you know, use maybe a co-working space just to get work done, but generally I like to stick to the places where I can connect to, like, you know, with other digital nomads and sort of plug into a community.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. There's a lot of people when they start out, especially if they're just building a business, which more and more people are discovering this lifestyle now and saying, okay, I'm going to build a business to make it happen. There's less people sort of stumbling into it now, more people actively deciding they want to be nomads, which is cool, but it means that a lot of people are coming in and they don't have a business and they need to work a lot and they need to build something. I've seen that those people tend to sort of, the number one question they ask is the Wi-Fi good? Is the Wi-Fi good? Is the Wi-Fi good? And just something that I've learned in a few years on the road is you usually don't have a problem with Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi is pretty ubiquitous. Like, you can get decent Wi-Fi almost anywhere. If not Wi-Fi, you can get decent cellular.
Yeah. My perspective is if there's a bunch of people who work in digital flocking to a space, that's a pretty good indication that the internet's good enough.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And like when we started traveling or being digital nomads, whatever you want to call it, when we started, there really weren't that many co-working spaces. I think Hubba in Bangkok had just opened up, and that was like really like the pioneering co-working space for digital nomads. There was no Hubud, there was no CoHub, there was no Pun Space. There definitely wasn't anything in Europe. There were some shared office networks like Regus and things like that, but nothing like for nomads. And so we just like worked from our accommodation and worked from coffee shops. And the co-working space movement has been a huge blessing for us, not because, oh great, there's finally somewhere with Wi-Fi. We made it work for a couple years without any issues, like working in Airbnbs, working in hostels, working in bars and restaurants and coffee shops, but because of the people. And the more people you meet, I think, who've been on the road long term, the more people tell you, like, it's about the people, because that's what you end up missing. Like, and maybe that sort of ties into the honeymoon phase. When you're starting out, it's like, you like the community if you have it, but you don't really crave it necessarily. Different people, again, different experiences, but you're just excited to be in a new place. Everything is fresh and interesting and new, and there's so much joy to be found in that. And the longer I've spent on the road, just speaking out of personal experience, the less exciting the travel becomes. It's still exciting, it's still a rush, no doubt. That's just like in my blood, I think. But really what's exciting is meeting good people, having good conversations, just like shooting the shit and connecting with somebody on just a social and personal level.
Yeah, I love it.
I think we sort of like went on a tangent there a little bit, but
this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the channel, is like because of these insights. Because a lot of people, who watch the channel will have like beginner type questions, but
totally.
It's good to know what you're getting yourself in. I mean, you can come out here for a month and then leave. Like, there's no risk coming out and joining.
You'll have a great trip,
movement.
undoubtedly. Like, you'll meet some cool people. You'll work on some passion projects. You'll be in a beautiful place. But long term, like, will it have any impact on you?
Yeah, but long term, this I thought Nick's story could be helpful to some of you people. Yeah. Speaking of that, I wanted to talk about your YouTube channel.
Okay.
And how long have you been doing it for? Have you been doing it since the start? Or?
No, I haven't been doing it since the start. Been doing it for about a year and a half, maybe a year and a half now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, here we go.
Meet my YouTube channel. Meet everybody.
Nick runs keeps a daily vlog. Is it daily or almost daily?
It's an attempt at daily. It's very frequently.
Very frequently.
Some days I just don't vlog. Some days are completely uninteresting, but I try to make it daily because the idea is like real insight into life on the road. It's not highlight reels. It's not like mashup videos. It's just, here's what a normal day on the road looks like for me.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people who have subscribed to our channel have really found that valuable, because I'm not trying to talk up the lifestyle. Sorry, mosquito.
That's okay.
Not trying to like talk it up and make it seem like something it's not. Also not bashing on it and saying like it's all awful and like it's all miserable. Just trying to show like real life. Sometimes it's amazing and we're like on boats going around to islands and sitting on the beach, and it's like everything that you see when you search digital nomad on Google. And then some days it's like the Wi-Fi is not working and the AC is down and like my clients are angry and I'm just like sitting working all day, and then I eat some takeout and then I go to bed. And I think the contrast is important to recognize. Like, there are challenges, there's highs and lows in digital nomad life, just like normal life. It's not necessarily going to be better or worse on a day-to-day basis. It's just different.
Yeah. Depending on who you are, it might be more challenging. Like, this lifestyle is definitely more challenging to maintain, at least for me, than my full-time job back in Australia.
Yeah, you're out of your comfort zone on a daily basis. I think it is more challenging for most people. But challenging isn't always bad. We know that because working out is difficult, like to force yourself to do. Like, it is challenging in that way, but it's so good for you and you feel the benefits of it long term. I think you can compare it to something like that, because maybe it's challenging, but also the benefits can be huge if you push through the challenge.
Yeah, I find it funny those people you mentioned who are trying to sell the whole digital nomad movement as some like, you know, holiday or something.
Yeah.
And you've got like somebody like sitting on like some like hammock or on the beach
Doesn't
with
work.
a laptop.
Doesn't work.
And I'm just like, wow, I could not be productive in that, doing that, because I need like a proper like ergonomics, right?
Yeah.
And like
Plus, you get sand in your computer and the glare on your screen and like
heat.
Yeah, heat. Your computer overheats. It's just not workable.
Yeah.
That said, I have worked from the beach a couple times and it's actually been really good. So
Yeah.
most of the time though, it's a no-go.
But yeah, no, I mean like we work in like, you know, co-working spaces like this, which are kind of like offices, but one of the differences is we can just go for a walk out to the beach. So you got all this kind of recreational stuff, I guess, or tropical, exotic sort of stuff nearby, which is the coolest thing. Awesome. So we had dinner last night, and you got really insightful on this sort of self-awareness stuff. So if it's okay with you, I was hoping we could talk a little bit about that, and it seems like your perspective now is and your goal now is just kind of, you're in that self-awareness stage of figuring out, you know, now that you know you like this lifestyle and you're living it, you've been living it for quite a while, sort of the next stage for you, and kind of figuring out what it is that you really want.
I'm still figuring it out, so this probably is not going to be the most straightforward discussion, but
That's fine.
But yeah, I think that when you get into digital nomadism, traveling and working, there's so many challenges and there's so many new things to think about, that your mind is, you know, just completely preoccupied with things like, how do I get from the airport to where I'm going? Like, you know, how do I get on the Wi-Fi? How do I take out money from the ATM? How do I buy groceries? Like, or if you're starting out, how do I build a business? Like, I need to make money. Those are all absolutely normal things to be preoccupied with. The more that I've traveled, the more I've built my business, you know, the less I find myself thinking about those things. Like, it's not as big a challenge anymore to figure out the currency or go shop for groceries or basic communication with people who don't speak the language. Those things just sort of become natural. And the business too, the business has grown, it's scaled a bit. Like, I don't have to worry about like where dollars are coming from, will I have enough? And so it's freed up all this space in my mind, and I've realized that I've actually done a pretty bad job over the last few years of figuring out actually who am I and what do I want? And, you know, like, what motivates me, and what's getting me up in the morning, and what are my goals moving forward. And so I've been spending a lot of time the past year or so really looking internally at just my own life and my own business and where I'm headed and what I want. And I've also been encouraging a lot of people that I meet who are starting out to make that a priority as they start out, because it's easy to get caught up in the travel and the business aspects, and those are great things, and they do require thought and they do require effort. But if you get into digital nomadism, I think ultimately for freedom, you need to know what freedom looks like for you. You need to know what is going to be fulfilling for you long term, because I mean, what happens when you've got like $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month, $100,000 a month coming in, and you can go anywhere, you can do anything? Who do you want to be? Like, what are you chasing?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I think it's the final chapter in the 4-hour work week, is like, you have all this free time, how do you fill it, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not saying that like revelation is unique to digital nomadism. I mean, you can have the same thing if you're, you know, like working a job back home, and people do. They have these like sort of like wake up moments where they're like, oh man, like, what am I doing? I'm just chasing a paycheck, or I'm just chasing like a certain lifestyle or a certain image, and it doesn't make me happy. And you actually find a lot of those people coming over to digital nomadism. They like quit their job, escape the rat race, screw the 9-to-5, like all that kind of stuff. And, you know, like, I'm going to go build my own business. But I think that you reach a certain point in digital nomadism too, where you sort of are on the hamster wheel. It's not a bad hamster wheel to be on by any means. Like, we're sitting here in like tropical paradise, the beach is right over there, like people are cooking food for us, and you know, we're hanging out with amazing people. It's not bad, but you sort of hit this point where you're like, what am I here for? What am I doing? And so I think self-awareness and realization of what you define success and fulfillment as in your own life is really important, whether you're a digital nomad traveling and working, or whether you're, working in a cubicle.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And what's sort of next for you? Do you have, I guess you want to discover more about what you're honing on, what really you want to do.
Yeah.
But is there, I guess you've been doing it. It's not like you just recently became location independent. So
yeah.
I'm not sure if are you working on anything new? Is there a next stage? Do you see like a clear next stage for you, or?
I don't. Steph and I are still trying to figure that out. We're on this whole self-awareness journey together, and experimenting too. I would add that experimenting is really important. Like, you can spend so much time getting caught up in your head and journaling, both good things, but you just got to try things sometimes. Like, you don't know unless you try. Like, experimenting will really give you the best look at what works for you and what doesn't. So like, if you become a digital nomad and you move out to Chiang Mai or something, and you like Chiang Mai, which it's a great city, but you only stay in Chiang Mai, it's not bad, it's not wrong. There is no bad or wrong way to do this. It's your life, but if you really want to figure out more about yourself, what makes you happy, what makes you tick, what you're interested in, you got to get out of that. One of the best things about traveling is it forces you to become self-aware, because you're subjecting yourself to new experiences all the time. And so we're sort of in an experimental phase right now. We've done the whole like traveled quickly, slowing down, and now we're thinking about maybe we start traveling more quickly again. We're realizing that we love being like facilitators relationally. Like, we like to empower people and equip people to be successful, whether that's becoming a digital nomad, whether that's starting a business, whether that's starting a nonprofit. We love that. We've had people come out and like live with us for stretches at a time while they work on building businesses, and we love stuff like that. That's one of the reasons I love vlogging, is I like to feel like I can provide some insight and knowledge that helps people. And so we've become really self-aware about that over the last few months, and we're trying to figure out like, what does that look like? Does that look like settling down for a bit, or does that look like being on the move more and like meeting more people and getting plugged into the coworking movement? I would be lying if I told you we knew what we were doing. We don't. We're gonna keep traveling. We're gonna keep meeting people, and gonna just try and be honest with ourselves.
I try and remind myself about that as well, that sometimes I feel lost because I'm trying so many different things, and sometimes I just think, I just want to be what's my one thing. I think people get caught up, well, at least I've got caught up, and I think other people do, is trying to find a one thing. Like, people are searching for their purpose, all this sort of thing. And for me, I've realized like maybe there's no one thing. Like, I'm discovering different things. I like different things.
I think the pressure to discover like your purpose too it's awful. I mean, purpose is amazing, and we should strive to find purpose and strive to find fulfillment, but I think the journey is just as important, if not more important, than actually figuring it out.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't care that I'm in my 20s and I don't know my purpose. And if I'm in my 30s, I don't know if I'll care if I haven't found my purpose. Like, the average person, not digital nomad, changes jobs. I forget how many times it is, but people change jobs like so many times, like 7 or 8 times before they find their like purpose. And you got to be okay with it, I think. And you got to be really grateful and accepting that you're able to live a life which allows you to experiment, that you have the luxury of being able to experiment. And you can't like get down on yourself when something doesn't work and be like, oh, this is awful, like this was a terrible decision. It's part of the journey, and you need to be honest with yourself too. And like, if something just doesn't work for you, stop chasing it. Like, a lot of people I see in the nomad movement do things that don't really satisfy them or make them happy, but they feel like it's what they're supposed to do, or what a digital nomad is supposed to do. Like, if you don't like Chiang Mai, don't go to Chiang Mai every year. Like, it sounds simple, but there's a lot of people that end up in Chiang Mai, they're like, I don't really like Chiang Mai for whatever reason, but I'm a digital nomad, so I have to be here. You don't. If you don't like traveling like super minimalist, like a lot of digital nomads, like, I've got my like bandana with like some nuts and seeds in it and an extra pair of underwear, and I throw it over my back, and like I travel the world. If you don't like that, schlep your luggage with you. It doesn't matter. It's your life. It's about freedom. It's about being able to do what makes you happy and what brings good into the world, I think. And so like being honest with yourself is super important. I'm having to learn that as we experiment more and more. Just like if something doesn't work, don't like cry about it. Move on, try something else, and like internalize it. Be like, all right, it's fine. What's next?
That's great stuff. I think we might call it there, end on a high note. But if you want to check out, yeah, it's almost lunchtime. If you want to check out Nick's stuff, you can search Nick Danforth on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I'll link it here.
I know.
So yeah, just click that. If you don't know how to click a spotlight, you just click there where I put it. Anything else you want to share with the people? You got the blog as well.
Well, Steph has a blog.
Steph has a blog,
which you can link as well if you want, or you can find it through any of my videos. I just want to let anybody who's out there watching know. I want to let you guys know that if you have any questions, or if you're like going through like the journey of becoming a digital nomad and you just need practical advice or like advice on how to process things mentally, like shoot me an email or shoot me a message through YouTube. I love helping people figure this stuff out. I think that's part of the like enabling and equipping and empowering people. And I might not be able to answer your question fully. We might be in like totally different places, or we might be in the exact same place figuring it out together, but I'd love to hear from you and would love to help if I can. So
awesome stuff. Yeah, Nick's a great guy. You should definitely hit him up.
I try to be like this guy.
We've got a dead camera, so I'm very wary of this camera dying. So I'll just end on this. This is Chris the Freelancer. If you're interested in remote work and travel, be sure to hit subscribe. I'll link it here, and I'll see you on the next video.
Big love.
Big love.
As I'm getting older, as life is getting more expensive, you know, it's so hard to like stay on that super tight budget. Let me see if there's a way to actually make like a US salary, like a normal Western 9-to-5 salary while living abroad.